That's a great question. It's a big question. And so there are two big pieces to start off with was our main character, Ember, the fire character. She was our first thing that we jumped into. We knew that she was going to be the character that was most seen throughout the movie. And so there was two places for her. So the first thing was her actual design, the aesthetics. And then there was the actual simulation. So those were those two worlds. The actual design was really interesting because we had tried stuff where she was realistic and she looked really scary. We had tried stuff where she was more like a video game and flat, but it didn't feel like fire. So that we were trying to find a balance. There was nothing like that out there. We couldn't find any reference of something that was in the middle there that was really useful design-wise. And so, but it took one of our artists to hand animate iPhone footage. He had taken his iPhone, recorded a fireplace, then brought it into the computer and then split out these frames and started painting over each frame. And that was our first test of a balanced fire. Because fire is so busy, in real life, we everyone was afraid, like, could we even look at the eyes? Could we even look at the mouth? But this test really showed the design aspect of it. But it was animated in a flat way. Then we needed to translate it into the computer. And then once we got into the computer, it destroyed our computers. Like, there was no way to render this fire, and so when we first started, all the teams were like, you're only going to get 5 close-ups, so you're only going to get 5 of these throughout the whole film. And I was like, we can't do that. So they found a research group in Zurich in Switzerland that helped out optimizing a new program that would take the fire and caricature it, but still be rendered in 3D volumetrics. And that was a huge leap for us. All of a sudden, we got fire in more shots, And so that was that aspect of just fire alone, right? And that brought the computer down to its knees. Once we got that started going, we immediately went to water. Water would become our monster. Water was the toughest thing in this movie. I hate water. It was so hard. I'm telling you, like, it was so difficult. But I love Wade, so this idea of we tried a character that was all translucent and clear, but you couldn't see anything. You couldn't see his mouth. You just saw the refractions of the world. So we had to caricature that in the same way. But he started looking like he was from a different movie. And then a new challenge presented, like, how do we bring these characters so that they look like they're from the same world, even though they're two opposite elements? And so there was a lot of design challenges from there. And then once we got that, we had to populate an entire city with all of this. And so it's too long what I'm saying. I'm just telling you, it was a really, really difficult challenge. Yeah. We talked to firefighters. We talked to scientists. We talked to engineers. We talked to so many different peoples for different aspects. We talked to plumbers for the water. But the story took a while to find its legs. We did a superhero version. We did this city on fire version. We did so many versions, and every time we did a version, I had a list that I wrote down of like every science effect that I could think of, between boiling, freezing, burning, charcoal. Like, I would just write these lists down. And when we started building the story, I would ask, like, oh, if there's a situation with someone that requires an action, is there a way to tie it to one of these science things that we would have? And there was so much more that we had on a list that we couldn't get into the movie, but that was the game that we started. Yeah, I mean, there were story reasons why we needed to build this city, and so it was just like, Ember is our main character. What would be the toughest thing for her? Oh, a city that started off with water. And so that was one of the story sections that we started coming up with. But at the same time, we were also trying to have fun. Like, what would an air stadium look like? And so all of a sudden, our production designer did a little cyclone drawing, and then he made that into a building. And all of a sudden, like, oh, I get it. That is a wind building for air people. But it's also sort of cartoony in a fun way, so that once you see it, you get it. And so you were mixing stuff that was really fun, but also trying to have it support the story. The fire town itself is sort of a neighborhood that feels warm, feels comfortable for fire, but it's orange and red. But then once Ember goes out into Element City, she's this one orange thing in this sea of blue, so that all of a sudden she can start feeling uncomfortable. It was from the employees at Pixar. There were people from all over the world, from Brazil, from China, from the Netherlands, all told us different stories about, connections, about family, about traveling, immigration. So much stories that all influenced the story. Yeah, the personal stuff were seeds. I liked thinking about it that way. So that was one philosophy that I had. So meaning the little personal nuggets would just be these seeds that I would throw in with the crew, and they would grow into something bigger. Meaning it would start to soak in all of these other stories to make it something bigger. And that was a really inspiring thing for me. That's what's so fun to watch about the film, is that it's so full of all these other characters and stories in there that enrich the main one. And so that was one main philosophy that I walked in going into building the city. A big city is that there's a lot of communities and they all need to work together. And so that belief echoed itself completely with the crew. And being in New York, you can feel when certain families and neighborhoods start to work together, and you can feel when it doesn't. And so I was chasing those feelings, working with the crew, trying to get a crew to connect together so that we can work toward a common goal. And that had a lot to do with being open. Had to do with having a lot of fun, trying to keep it, this is a lot of years working on something. And so if it was, boring or tough, it would be a slog to get through. And so you just want to keep it moving, want to keep it, fun, so that, and then open so that everyone can bring their ideas into it. I absolutely agree with you that the power of animation comes with its visual storytelling. And trying to communicate through pictures and ideas is one of my favorite things. I grew up drawing, but also it's not just that communication, it's also trying to boil things that we know in our lives to a way that can resonate with everybody. That idea that everyone can connect to it is I agree with you, it's one of my favorite things about animation. But when you start getting to the nitty-gritty, bringing something to life, bringing a character to life through this form is so incredibly fulfilling. The 7 years, but these characters that we made in this crew, they came from nothing. We didn't shoot any, there was no cameras to shoot. This was all made by all these people, and that feels like a child that you've created, and you've taught the child to do well in school, play some sports, eat well, and now it's leaving to go to, the big city. It's like, okay, bye child. And so there's a real connection that you give to making something from scratch like this. It's a really wonderful feeling.